Welcome to A Friend of Mine, a series of conversations with some incredible and inspiring women in business from regional and rural Australia. I'm Kimberly Finesse, your host and the founder and editor of Oak Magazine, and I cannot wait to introduce you to some amazing female entrepreneurs who will share with you their experience and knowledge of what it takes to start, grow and scale a successful business. So let me introduce you to a friend of mine. Like many expectant mums, Sophie Doyle was struggling to find the perfect nappy bag. Rather than settle, Sophie took the matter into her own hands by sketching a vision of the ultimate bag and having it made in Bali. It wasn't long before her friends wanted that same stylish and versatile nappy bag. And so, in 2016, Alf the Label was born. What started out as a hobby with an initial run of 50 bags has quickly scaled into $1 million business with a customer base that stretches across the globe. Sophie shares with us her startup story, the challenges of running a business from Western Australia, managing a serious health issue, as well as her advice on the importance of branding. Meet my friend Sophie from Alf the Label. Hello and welcome, Sophie. Firstly, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your business to talk with me. I really do appreciate it. And especially the podcast is allowing me to speak to women that are outside of Vic, New South Wales, which has primarily been the print magazine. So I love that I can speak to you all the way over in Perth.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Now, you and your business, Alf the Label, are based in Perth. Did you want to tell me what is the best thing about your city, your state, and how is the women in business scene over there?
It's just funny. There's a lot of amazing things about living in Perth, but there are also so many challenges, which I can probably touch on as well. Obviously, like you said before, isolation is a huge one. Perth is a city that's obviously so far away from every other city in Australia. So although we do have, incredible lifestyle here, we've got incredible beaches and the weather is beautiful most of the time. Everybody seems pretty happy to live in WA. But from a business side of things, there are a lot of upsides in terms of things like warehousing costs are generally less. And women in business in Perth seem to all kind of band together. It's a pretty small community of business owners or entrepreneurs over here. So a lot of us have met at some point at an event or whatnot. And then there's obviously the flip side of that, which is the challenges like postage costs, which are just extortionate from Western Australia, even just to get products over east. So I guess, it's two sides of the coin. I love it. I absolutely love living in Perth and I don't know that I would move. But it also does give us a lot of challenges which we have to work through.
Yeah, most certainly, especially postage. Do you pass that cost on to your client or your customer? Because I know AusPost have gone up recently, like at the start of the year. And, how much do you absorb?
We absorb quite a bit of it. We do offer free shipping when you order like the pram straps, which you can buy with our bags. And if that's the case, obviously, then we do absorb the entire shipping cost. Obviously, my product is a little bit different to a fashion brand, for instance, with the volume that we're actually sending. One of our larger bags, the Stella, for instance, which is our biggest bag, but it's around 5 cubic litres in volume. And that actually can cost up to $43 to send across, to a regional location in Australia, let alone getting it international. So it obviously depends on what the weight is and what the volume is. And AusPost have worked with us to try and get the most cost-effective way of getting our goods over east, but it is incredibly cost-prohibitive. People do expect free shipping these days, and I would love to be able to provide it on everything, but just due to the cost, just a small business just can't absorb that at this point.
Now, you did launch Alf the Label in sort of October 2016, so just over 3 years ago now, from your kitchen table. So like so many other amazing women in business, and one that comes straight to mind is Samantha Wills. Can you take me back to those early days and how you actually started your business?
Yep. Well, it's really nice to be compared to Samantha Wills. I really do admire her as a business leader, so really lovely. But so I definitely did start from, my coffee table in my back lounge room, I guess technically it was. So I was on maternity leave with my daughter Ari, who is now 4 and a bit, when I sort of had the idea for the business and really started working on it. It did take around just over a year to really get to a point where the business had actually launched and was, actually the website was operating and I had something to sell. Like a lot of other sort of mumpreneurs, I had an idea based on the fact that I couldn't find anything that I liked in the market for a baby bag. And so I had designed pieces of clothing for myself, and I'd actually had a few handbags made previously on holidays when I've been over to Asia a few times. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make my own because I didn't see anything that I liked, and I thought I wanted something that was going to last me through motherhood and then be able to use it potentially as a work bag or an overnight bag or something later down the track. And so I had a bag made for myself, and then I got back and people started seeing it, and naturally kind of as a new mum, you're around other new mums and they were all asking where I'd got it from and whether it was a baby bag, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of thought, well, maybe there is actually a business in this. And I had a few people asking me, can I get them one made? So I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And then the sort of idea and the business started rolling on from there.
What's your background before Alf the Label? Like, what were you doing prior to that? And was there any skills that you've been able to transfer over into running your own business?
Yeah, absolutely. I studied marketing and PR and have worked in agency and in corporate marketing and PR, I guess, for a number of years. I think it's probably, would it be nearly 15 years now? I'm trying to think how old I am. I started my career in marketing in a marketing agency in Dubai, actually, when I was, how old was I? 19. So it does go back a long way. And I guess obviously with an Instagram-based business, which we started out as, marketing is absolutely the key to success in that area, is trying to build an audience and then being able to communicate effectively with that audience. So I've definitely found that my prior career has helped me immensely.
When I see your label on Instagram, whether it's the feed, stories or IGTV, or then Facebook or email, website, YouTube, Pinterest, you name it, I know it is Alf the Label. Like, it is so well branded. Is that sort of what's come from your background in marketing, that importance of brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually coach other small businesses in their branding as well. I'm really, really passionate about having everything consistent and cohesive, and all of your marketing channels and customer touch points all talking to each other. And so exactly like you said, you could just see an image online and instantly you would know, you'd be able to relate it back to that brand. I think that's really, really important, especially with a lot of brands these days being online. It's a really, really important point to be able to connect with your audience in that way.
Yeah, consistency across the board. Like, how important is brand to a small business? I just feel that it's something that a lot are leaving until last. Like, they sort of launch and think, oh, well, I don't really want to invest in that just yet. What are your thoughts and maybe tips on branding?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that the brand comes first and the product comes second in some aspects. If you have a really, really strong brand, you could literally sell a paper bag because you've built an audience who actually just want to buy from you because it's the brand as opposed to the actual product that they're selling. I mean, Apple is obviously a great example of an incredible brand where literally they could release anything and people would buy it because they want to buy from that.
And I mean, when we talk about brand, obviously I've got a marketing comms background as well. I know that brand is not just your logo and the colours and your font, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's the way that the way that you communicate with your audience. It's your language. It's like you said, it is the logo and the colours and all of those things, but it's also just the use of those key things and the consistency across all of your channels.
So it's definitely worth investing, though, in terms of finding a graphic designer in their area rather than going to Fiverr, perhaps. So supporting another, local female-founded business.
Absolutely. I think for small businesses who don't have a really strong brand already and want to work on that, I always recommend finding a graphic designer who obviously suits your style, because I think one of the things with graphic design is that it really is a personal taste thing. Not all graphic designers are the same. There's some that I personally will work with our brand, and there's some that I think are genuinely really great graphic designers, but they just don't speak to me. Their style doesn't speak to me. So I think it's really important to find somebody who definitely catches your eye with their work. I do prefer to use somebody that you're able to talk to on the phone at least, or by everything can be online. I think we do use graphic designers who are East Coast based, but we are actually able to communicate with them on the phone if we need to really chat through something. The online services where you just get them to generate a few logos and things like that. I don't know. I personally don't recommend them. I think if that's the only option that you've got, then that's fine. But I think it would be great to find somebody who, really sort of speaks to you and you feel is like an extension of your own brand. And it does cost money to get somebody who is really good at that. And I think that's just one cost that, as a small business, you really need to try and work your way up to be able to pay somebody to do a really good job. But my main thing is that we often get a few things done by a graphic designer, a few key elements of the branding look and feel, and then we take those and we use a program called Canva, which a lot of small businesses and probably big businesses these days use to generate different templates, and we use those brand elements in other ways ourselves so that we don't have the cost of a graphic designer full time.
Yeah, Canva is absolutely amazing. And I think what floors me is that it was also founded by a female from Australia.
Yeah, that's right.
So I've got 4 kids. I am way past nappy bag, Sophie. I don't want to ever see a nappy bag in my life. No offense. And that's got nothing to do with nappy bags, okay? That's more just, 4 kids is great,
I feel
right? I follow you and have so for quite some time on Instagram, and then you now pop into my inbox on a regular basis. Again, consistency, and it's branded. And I'm not sick of you. Like, I love that you pop in my inbox as well. Like, email marketing is obviously something you guys have added to your marketing.
Yeah, was, at the end of last year, and I guess it obviously takes quite a number of months to get things, humming with new programs and things, but we changed over from MailChimp to Klaviyo, which is a much more dynamic and intelligent email system than MailChimp. Now, MailChimp has its purpose, and I have used that for the first 3 years of business, and I thought it was great. But we had got to the point where, like I said, I wanted to be able to personalize things and make people feel like they are actually seeing information that they really want to see, and even so much as their order confirmations and things like that. I wanted them to really say that it's part of Alf. Like you said, the brand needs to still speak to them in every touch point. So we moved over to Klaviyo, and like I said, it took quite a number of months to get it really cranking, but now it is. I couldn't recommend it more. It's quite a bit more expensive than MailChimp, but you can do so many more things. There's different flows that you can put in place that have certain triggers. If somebody hasn't purchased for a number of months, then you can send them a certain sort of email, and you can personalize it down to only showing them content which they haven't already purchased, products that they haven't already purchased, and things like that. Because I don't want to be annoying to anybody, and certainly not spammy, because I am the first person to unsubscribe from a spammy email. So I wanted a system which really worked for me and our business. And obviously we have a small team, so it needed to be something that wasn't going to take a really, really long time to be able to produce a nice looking email. So I actually still do them myself as part of the marketing for the brand. So any email that goes out, it has been created by me, apart from the automatic ones like obviously our order confirmation, shipping emails and things like that. And yeah, I'm really loving it. It's a nice creative outlet.
Yeah. Hey, I'm so interested that you've switched from MailChimp to the other one though. Because I mean, I don't know if you're in like-minded bitches drinking wine, the massive Facebook group there is. Now look, if you sift through some of that content, there is some, really good pieces of advice in that. But look, something that always comes up is, about email marketing platforms and which one to use. I think, as you said, MailChimp's fantastic for an entry-level business that has under your 2K subscribers. But yeah, I was really interested that that's where you've gone over there, because I'd sort of heard pros and cons of both. So it's good to hear that it's working for you. It
really is. There's another great platform which we were considering when we moved across to Klaviyo called Active Campaign, which I've heard really good things about as well.
Heard that,
yep. But for whatever reason, we chose Klaviyo, and I've been really happy with it so far.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So what are we? We're about 3 years into business, just over 3 years. How, from the outside, it just looks like an overnight success, which of course it's not, I realise, but how quickly did your business scale? And I suppose, when do you know to move from your coffee table, into the warehouse?
So, well, like we said, I started from my home office, and then it actually got to a point where I needed help. I had actually been made redundant from my previous job while I was on maternity leave, which sounds awful, but the way that it happened actually wasn't. I took a voluntary redundancy during that time. So because I felt like maybe it was the universe telling me that I needed to give this a shot full time, because I had been actually doing Alf for the first 2 years of business as a side hustle on top of a part-time/full-time job around my kids, which sounds as insane as it actually was. We were up until midnight most nights packing orders. My husband used to have to help me because, there was nobody else. And it got to a point where I had then decided that it was going to be my full-time gig, and then instantly I realised that actually I couldn't do everything by myself, that this was getting ridiculous. And so I brought on two amazing marketing girls part-time, and that was amazing, except that we were still at my house. And then we brought on a dispatch, Leah, who still works for me in customer service and dispatch, and we were all crowded into my back studio. We took up my back studio which was actually meant to be a lounge room, turned it into a studio, our spare room, our massive storage cupboard that we had at home, and underbed storage in my actual bedroom. And then we had off-site storage as well. And then 4, including me, working from my house. And I just remember looking around one day when we had a sale, and Leah was trying to pack orders just in the most cramped environment, and I just turned around and went, this is ridiculous, we've got to get out of here. And so I immediately started looking for warehouse space and office space externally, and then we took on a lease about 10 minutes away from my home, and we are still there now.
Oh my God, and it looks amazing. Now, was it always your decision to do online only and not a bricks and mortar? Has there ever been a temptation to open a store?
I've never been tempted to open a store per se, as in an actual bricks and mortar Alf store. But I have considered as to whether to work with stockists. It is still in the plans for this year or next year to look into that again. Obviously, the dynamic changes in terms of the financials of the business and things like that when you do start taking on stockists, because obviously your margins fluctuate, and the way that you are actually ordering from manufacturers and suppliers changes as well. So it is something that I'm looking into. I definitely like the idea of being online and being exclusive to online, because we're able to then control where everything is being sent to and things like that. But at the same time, I do understand that our customers crave the ability to be able to come and see and touch and feel our products. So we have got a few things in the works for the next sort of year and next year, or the rest of this year and next year, I should say, to try and overcome that. And whether that is stockists is still up in the air. But yeah, we're certainly looking into it. I never say never, but we do enjoy being an online business, I have to say.
What are some other important aspects for an online store for you?
I think going back to what I said about trying to create a connection with your customer. Customer satisfaction comes from, again, having a connection with the brand. And, even if there's a problem, being able to speak to a human and feeling like you're actually being heard, or if you've got good feedback, being able to actually have somebody reply to that. People will actually send us responses from emails, which we send out, also as part of our marketing materials. People will send us beautiful emails back from that just to say, thanks so much, I absolutely love my bag, or I really love your brand, blah, blah, blah. And I will actually take the time to respond to that person individually. So I think that being able to create a connection with the customer, you can't be I'm a busy person, but I'm not too busy to be able to talk to the people that are actually making my business work. Without customers, we're nothing.
That's definitely good to hear that you're not too busy for them. What's been the biggest challenge you've faced, and how did it help shape who you are today?
This is probably a personal thing rather than a business-related thing. But so when I was 20, I was living in Thailand for a short time and went out into the jungle and got bitten by a whole bunch of mosquitoes. And I went home that night and I woke up in the middle of the night and was extremely thirsty. Couldn't drink enough water, literally would have drunk out of the toilet bowl if that was the only water available. And it was a really weird thing. And I was drinking and going to the toilet every 5 minutes. Anyway, we actually came back to Perth that afternoon on a flight, which was very, very lucky because I went straight to the doctors, and about 5 weeks later, they diagnosed me with a very rare condition called diabetes insipidus, which is caused by a small brain tumour on my pituitary gland, which was very technical, but inhibiting the secretion of antidiuretic hormone, if anybody is actually interested in that, which is the hormone that makes you retain water. So now, naturally, my body doesn't retain any water whatsoever. And I have medication to help my body keep the water that I'm drinking in my body. So as you can imagine, that was a pretty big life change for me. They wanted to operate on the tumour pretty much immediately, but funnily enough, it was right after Christmas and there were no surgeons available. And so for whatever reason, they actually didn't operate, and they decided to just try the medication and see how I went with just the medication, and I went kind of okay. And so since then, I still have a brain tumour and now live taking this hormone replacement medication every day. But the reason that I'm saying that this is probably the biggest challenge that has made me who I am is that it made me realise that not everything is as serious as you think it is. I'm one of those people that now I look at things on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being death. How serious is this problem? So something that I would have probably got really upset over, or not being able to move past prior to that, or even, these days if I didn't have this condition, I sit back and I go, actually, how serious is this? Not that serious. Okay, just accept it and move on. And so it's really taught me to also be very grateful for every single day that you have on this earth, because, it's not a terminal condition, but it obviously has made me realise that you just need to be really grateful for your health and to perhaps not take everything so seriously.
It's such a big story. So you're right, managing day to day in terms of medication and lifestyle? Yeah,
I've had a few issues recently where I don't really know what's going on, but my medication isn't performing the way that it used to. But my specialists are onto it. We're trying to figure out why that is. But it really is just trying to be flexible and a little bit patient with myself as well. Like I'm generally a lot more tired than other people, potentially because I'm probably borderline dehydrated most of the time. Dehydration can do pretty awful things to your body. It can make you forget things. When I'm really dehydrated, my short-term memory is quite bad. But then I have the flip side as well, which is quite dangerous for me personally, where if my medication starts to build up in my system, I can get what you call a low sodium. So your body starts to retain too much water and water starts collecting on your brain, and you can get a bit sort of out of it. I get to a point where I can barely even tell you what my name is sometimes. And then I end up having to go to the hospital and basically just be monitored while my body just drains all the water that it's retaining out, which is not very glamorous. But that is actually quite dangerous for your body to do that, because it can cause seizures or a stroke and things like that. But I think because I've had it for so long, it almost seems like that's just a part of my life now.
Oh my God, Sophie, you really are incredible. And any regrets in business yet, just in the 3 and a bit years?
Oh, probably my biggest regrets would be having started the business and not thinking about it with a long-term view. When I first started, it was a hobby. It was something that I thought was just going to be a fun little side hustle that wasn't going to take up a hell of a lot of time, or, it wasn't going to turn into this fairly sizable business that it is now. So probably my biggest regret is being a bit naive as a business owner. I'd not really run a business before. I'd obviously worked in corporate as an employee for other people running businesses, but not looking for the future and setting up a website initially that was going to be able to scale with the company. And from a finance perspective, not having systems and processes in place that were managing the books really well from the first, from day one. I think that's really important. I'm not a finances person, so that area has always sort of terrified me slightly. But I think it's really important that if you're not a finance person to outsource that as soon as possible, so that you can get things in place, so that you're not having to, find receipts from 2 years ago, 3 years later.
Yeah, you're talking to me there.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of us have the same challenges, but we've got an incredible accountant and bookkeeper accountants that we use now, who I feel like they're the most important people in my entire business some days, because I just couldn't do it myself.
Yeah, I don't know if we can just drive it home even more and just tell people that are starting out, your number one thing, get a bookkeeper right from the word go.
Absolutely. And I think as well, like in the outset, when you are starting a business, paying a few $100s or even a couple of $1,000s or whatever to get particular advice can seem so expensive when, every single dollar, you're watching every single dollar that you're putting into the business. But I can 100% say that you are going to make that money back, as in terms of the value. If you put a few $1,000s into getting the right advice from the right people, you will 100% not regret it later down the track.
Agree 100%. So yeah, bookkeeper, your branding, invest in that right from the word go, because that then flows onto everything that you do. Now, you've kicked off 2020 with a bang, I think, with a whole new range. What I love about this range personally is just going back to my nappy bag days. And look, the struggle to actually find one for my husband to use, because he was actually primarily the stay-at-home dad. So, I was the working one and he was with the kids, and obviously was the one carrying around the nappy bag a lot than I did. So what I love about this new range, I feel it's a little bit more unisex.
It absolutely is. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that I designed this range, the Alf Active range, was to appeal to men just a little bit more. And obviously with the shadow colour that we have, which is like the black and a charcoal, naturally it's obviously a bit more of a masculine colour. The other bags that we do make, the leather, our original sort of Stella and Ari bags, in black, I think there's a lot of men that do like to use them, but obviously being a leather handbag style, it's not really something that they would necessarily buy for themselves, for instance, or choose to carry around. So when I was designing Alf Active, I did definitely have that at the top of my mind as to whether men were going to want to use it or not. Yep.
Well, how long does it take from concept to launch? So sketching those out and then actually being able to launch the product live online?
Oh, yeah, around almost a year.
Wow.
It was about 10 months for Alf Active. It took, because I designed the bags primarily from scratch and I don't have an accessories design background per se. I do it in the old-fashioned way where I sort of draw on pieces of paper and then find pictures of other, clasps that I like, and I find pictures of the leather that I want to use, and I kind of do these like mood boards and put it all together and then try and articulate it to my suppliers and hope to God that they actually understand me. Obviously, there is a language barrier because we do work with our Chinese manufacturers, but thankfully they seem to understand me pretty well. And for Alf Active, for instance, there were 3 rounds of sample changes. So we did the first sample. It came back sort of what I thought that it was going to look like, but definitely with a few issues. I made my changes. They produced new samples. I looked at them again. Still, I decided, there were still sort of things that I wanted to change. And then finally we got to a point where I was almost 100% happy with it. They sent me the 3rd sample and there was a few sort of tweaks, and then we go to mass production. So I think in maybe a larger scale business where there are proper designers and, they use AutoCAD and all of those fancy programs online, and they're not relying on fairly poor sketches, I would say. The process I would expect would be a lot quicker. But I actually really enjoy that part of the business, and I feel that because the bag, it's not just a handbag, it needs to work from as a pram bag. And, obviously one of the things that is different about our products is that they are convertible. So there's a lot of things that need to work before you can actually launch a product, and it's not just sort of sketching up a handbag and having it made and going, that looks good, let's go.
What has been the biggest challenge or sacrifice you've had to make to follow your dream?
The biggest challenge has probably, for me, being able to let go of parts of the business and let other people take those roles on themselves. Because when I started this, it was all me and obviously my very helpful husband. But I was doing everything from marketing to product development to the finances to the dispatch to, literally everything, all the customer service. And naturally, I took everything very personally because I built it from scratch. So being able to grow the business and bring other people on board to come and help, I think for me, that was probably one of the biggest challenges. It's been the biggest blessing because I absolutely love the team that we work with now. But for me, as a personal challenge, was being able to comfortably outsource and trust that things were going to be done to the same standard that I would have done them. But it's really all about just making sure that you're teaching the people that you bring on the way that you like to do it, and making sure that communication is the key, internal communication. If there's any questions, making sure that you're explaining things, in detail so that nobody's assuming anything and things like that. And then eventually, like now, it's not really a challenge for me now, but it certainly was in the beginning.
And in terms of taking things personally, do you still take things personally, or there's a bit more of a buffer or a thick skin there?
Oh, there's definitely a buffer because there's other people, but I absolutely do take things personally. I mean, fortunately for us, we don't get a lot of negative feedback. But, if ever there was negative feedback, it certainly does hurt if somebody's not 100% positive about what you've created with your own blood, sweat and tears. But you do need to be a little bit thick-skinned, because I think ultimately, and this works for any sort of industry, is that you're never going to be able to please every single person, but you can try your hardest to do a good job. I get up in the morning and I go to work and I absolutely try my hardest to do a good job for everybody. And just trying to remember that is key, really.
Now, what is next for Alf the Label?
Oh, so many things. I've got lots of different products in the works, which I'm hoping we'll be able to launch a few more by the end of the year, which is really exciting. One of the other things, like I said earlier, was looking to start dispatching or fulfilling from an East Coast location, just so that we can make some savings on shipping and things, and also the time frame that it takes for a parcel to get to a customer. From Perth, it can take anywhere up to 14 days to some locations, which I just think seems absolutely ludicrous. It's not like we're in Antarctica, but being able to get things to the customers quicker, being able to obviously save on the shipping, and just having a bit more of a solid process in terms of how we dispatch is a really big one for me. Trying to connect with our customers on an even more sort of deeper level again, doing a few more or things. We've got a few ideas in the works of doing some face-to-face stuff. Like I said, looking into stockists and things like that. Lots of different things.
Oh, exciting. Finally, before we go, the podcast is all about introducing our listeners to a friend of mine. Can you tell us about a friend that you have that we all need to know about?
Yep. I think that you ought to speak to Sophie from Celia Love. She is a lawyer turned candle maker in Geelong. And she's just got the most incredible candles in the entire world. And I say this because I found her business on Instagram, I don't know, probably a couple of years ago now, and bought some candles from her, not knowing who she was. And then her branding and her entire brand just like, it speaks to me. If you have a look at her on social media, you'll probably see that there are a lot of synergies between the colours that she uses and the colours that we use, for instance. And we just started chatting on Instagram and we really hit it off, and she's super funny and she's incredible. She worked as a lawyer for a long time, and then she's now actually she's doing full-time of her own business. But she is another one to watch. I think you probably will have seen her candles in lots of different stores, but we've now, since I've stalked her on Instagram and become friends, we've actually met in person when I went over to Melbourne, and we're just really good mates. And I think she's got a really lovely business story that I think that everybody would like to hear.
Well, thank you again for being a guest on our podcast, and I cannot wait to see what else Alf the Label brings out this year.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye. Now, before you take off with all that inspiration and knowledge, we'd love for you to leave a review on our podcast so that we can continue to amplify women's voices in the media. And if you have any questions, we'd like to celebrate a win, you can always connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Oak Magazine AU. I'm so glad we've met and that now you know a friend of mine.